Hello?
Commissioner Corbin, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Before I call the meeting to order, a friendly reminder that our Board of Commissioners meetings are recorded, including video and audio of the audience, the presenters table, and the commission table. So if you have any questions in that, you can ask, but everything in the room now is recorded, both video and audio. And with that, Jen, are you ready to call the meeting to order? All right, we will call the meeting to order. Would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbin?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldron? Commissioner Thel?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First item on the agenda is acknowledge a petition for vacation of alley and set a date of hearing for the Town Proprietor's second edition. And I'm going to ask Chad if he would want to address that.
Yes, thank you. This petition to vacate was received in the city offices. I think first it came to me, and then I passed it along to Jen to put with the agenda packets. But the normal process per state statute is to receive the petition, set a date of hearing, have the hearing, and then consider a resolution to vacate based upon the decision at the commission at that time. And so this is simply to acknowledge it, and then we may have some discussion with the petitioner in the interim with staff and such, and perhaps the commission as necessary to determine if there's any recommendations staff may have to not pursue vacating a portion of it and so on. So I think the main discussion happens between the meetings, and then of course at the hearing itself, the petitioner will have
And then
an
it'll be
opportunity.
published twice.
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess
Yeah.
I've already had some discussions with some of the utility departments and such about this, and actually with the applicant. So we'll
Did you have a visit with Randy and the fire chief on, or Gary, on accessibility to creek and, for fire accessibility, since this is right along the railroad track, the 16-foot one?
I had a conversation with Gary.
Okay.
And then some of the other folks, Brad actually, and Kim Verhey, some, but not with Randy, no. So
Okay.
I'll put him on the list to talk
Please
to
do.
as well.
Yeah.
So.
Let's make sure that we're, not creating an issue, and that way we would have, not be able to get, fire in there, or not be able to get vehicles in to clean the creek in that area.
Yep. All right.
So, with that, the date of hearing would be May 15th at 5:35 p.m. And we need a motion from a commissioner on that.
To acknowledge a petition for vacation of the alley and set the date of hearing. What was it again?
May 15th
May 15th,
at 5:35 p.m. or thereabout.
5:35 p.m. The Town Proprietor's second edition.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there anything anyone would like removed from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no old business, under new business, authorize the mayor to sign Amendment A, Sioux Valley Southwestern Electric Co-op, the Wheeling Electric Power. And I'm going to ask Brad if you would address that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had an existing agreement with Sioux Valley to wheel power to, I believe it's Stemper Auto Body out east of town, just off of Highway 34. And it was dated back in 1999. And since things have changed quite a bit since 99, we wanted to get an updated version of this and rewrite some of the language. Some of the language was a little bit hard to follow. And so we rewrote it and substituted this new paragraph 1 and a new paragraph 4 inside this existing agreement, which is about 4 pages, three pages long. and this is the new language. Worked it out with Sioux Valley and then sent it to our legal counsel, and he had no issues with the language as proposed. And the wheeling rate would be bumped up to that 2.441 cents, which is the same as what we're wheeling the power to DSU at.
Okay. No other issues or in that? Just
No,
basically
there-
update it? And
There have been a couple minor changes. Sioux Valley is going to start reading the meter. In the past, we were reading the meter and then relaying that information on to WAPA. Now, Sioux Valley is reading the meter on their automated meter reading system, so we no longer have to do that.
Okay.
So that's something that's a good change for the better.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Is there anything notable, anything else besides what you've said, something we should distinguish for the public or anything?
No, I think getting the wheeling rate up is a big deal. I mean, that was a substantial change from what it was. I'd have to look it up again, but it's been, a lot of years. It's more than doubled, if I remember correctly, or about doubled from what it was originally. So that'll get us a little bit more revenue. It's not a very big load, so it's not like it's a lot of money. But the other thing was the way that they had it worded for capacity was really hard to follow. It didn't make much sense, so we got that changed. So hopefully now anybody can fall on this, read it, understand how to determine the capacity.
And then is it also set in there, for whenever rate adjustments and that adjustments can be made?
Yes, and the way it was set up, if I remember correctly, was if we do a certain amount of improvements, and we've been doing those improvements, $100,000 in upgrades. Well, this year we're doing almost $800,000 in upgrades. So we do that every year, and so it's something we can reopen every year. It has not been done in the past, and it's something that needed to be done. So.
Okay. Questions or comments?
See, with the company that was in there before Stempers moved in was Thebar. It was a oil distributing company. They probably didn't use nearly the power that Stempers is using, so.
Yes, and they just added on, and they want to more or less double their capacity. And at this time, it's not an issue for the Southeast substation, and I don't see it being an issue for any, near future unless something comes in that's very large. But right at this point in time, it's not of any issue that I can see right now as far as capacity on our part. I don't see it happening anytime in the next 5 to 7 years, to be honest with you, where we'd have to worry about the capacity there. And at that time, we'll probably put in a second transformer and still won't worry about it. So.
All right. If no other questions, do we have a motion?
Move to authorize the mayor to sign Amendment A, Sioux Valley Southwestern Electric Cooperative Wheeling Electric Power, as presented by Brad.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, authorize the mayor to sign the cost proposal with Geotech Engineering and Testing Services Incorporated, geotechnical exploration for West Center Street, reconstruction from Highland and Josephine. Chad, would you want to address that, please?
Yes, thank you. The proposal is included in the agenda packet. This would be for work basically to provide surfacing recommendations for the roadway. There's borings accomplished, 7 of them, basically 1 per block, to determine soil stability and capacity to carry loads, and among other things, water elevation, groundwater elevations, and so on, and then provide the recommendations for the surfacing thicknesses to support the anticipated traffic. I would describe this as a typical and standard for new projects, to make sure that if you're spending this money to redo the project, to have the appropriate surfacing section in there. One thing I think we will do is we'll compare this to some typical recommendations we have had in other parts of town, and then also to sort of a typical that we recommend for subdivision developments. And it's always good to check in and compare. We don't want to put a thicker section or a more costly section in there when we can get by with something thinner. and vice versa. You know, we don't want to put something too thin on there and then have problems with because of the soil conditions and so on. And so that's why I would recommend that we proceed with this cost proposal for Geotech to accomplish these services.
Questions at all?
I see you still got Josephine down on this. We're not gonna go to Blanche and do the whole street the right way, or?
Oh, that's a good question. We actually are going all the way through Blanche.
We do.
What we're, the pavement, we did look at that after you'd recommended that and looked at that. From Josephine to Blanche, I believe that's a newer surfacing section than what it was, and it's been a little while, so I apologize, but I believe that the storm sewer and everything is more suitable in there, so we are not going to fully reconstruct the center part of the roadway there. We're going to take out the curb and gutters and widen it. I know the street guys would like to see it this uniform width, like you'd
Yeah.
suggested. And then the water main is actually outside the roadbed itself. It's more in the boulevard. So we did extend the project, but we're not going to excavate, and there's no deep excavations in the roadway section from Josephine to Blanche. That's why it's listed that way.
You're gonna fix them 2 aprons, in the alleyway there,
Yeah.
going north and south.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right. Other questions? Not? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign cost proposal, Geotech Engineering and Testing Services Incorporated, geotechnical exploration, West Center Street reconstruction, Highland, Josephine.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bid number 859, review and award bid for the Surfacing Improvement Project 2017-3. And again, I'll ask Chad if you want to address that one.
Thank you. Included in the bid packet is a bid tabulation for this project. It is northeast 3rd Street from Division to Airport Road. We opened bids for the project on April 12th at 3 o'clock. There were 3 bidders: Seal Pros out of Harrisburg, Merlin Roy out of Sioux Falls, and Asphalt Surfacing Company out of Sioux Falls. The 3 bids ranged in prices from $347,000 to $374,000. Seal Pros was the low bid. We have not worked with them as a direct contractor in the past. However, they have been a sub on a project for us in previous years. 2 years ago, they were a subcontractor for the project that Prunty built for us. There was 2 parts to that project, one on Northeast 5th Street and one on South Egan Avenue. So we have worked with those folks. Given that we have not contracted with them directly before, we had them fill out a reference form, and did contact a couple of the references, and they vouched for Seal Pros being able to complete this type of work satisfactorily. I would recommend that we award the bid to Seal Pros out of Harrisburg. Now, I should talk some about the pricing for the project. You'll notice on the bid tabulation, the engineer's estimate was $281,000, and the low bid was $347,000. There's some, I'll describe it, there's some work items in here that we don't have accomplished as often, and so the items, my estimate was lower than what the actual bids came in as. However, I'm confident with the close proximity of the bids that, relatively speaking, within about $25,000, that this is what this type of work costs. I have no reason to believe it'd been different if it would have been just a single bid, and then it might have questioned, why it was over the engineer's estimate. Then also related to budget, included in the budget was that we had estimated back in the summer of last year was a total of $276,000 for the project, coming from 2 sources. One would be from the special maintenance fee fund. Approximately $212,000 was to come from that, and another $64,000 for what I would describe as the non-asphalt part of the work. from the IIP or the second cent funds. I've talked with Jen some about this, about the balances for each of those funds anticipated at the end of 2017. The IIP, as you know, that those funds accumulate, and we, I guess I'll describe it that way. That's maybe not the best accounting way. We accumulate the funds in there to be able to be prepared for a future larger project. For example, 2018, with the project on Center Street, estimated to be, I can't remember the number right now. Well, it's in excess of $1 million is what that is. And so it's anticipated at the end of 2017 we'll have 1.9 million in there, and in the out years farther even beyond, we don't go with a negative balance at this point. And should there be projects that make that be closer in those out years, we simply revise the project layouts and such to make that fit. So I would submit that there's sufficient funds for the IIP portion of the project. We would estimate right now we would exceed the IIP or the second cent portion of the project anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 is what we would use in excess of the budget. And then switching to the special maintenance fee funded component of the project, it's anticipated at the end of this year, with the $212,000 included in the budget, to have a balance of about $164,000 available in the special maintenance fee fund. So I'm anticipating anywhere from also $20,000 to $30,000 in excess being spent of that 164. So suffice it to say that there will be sufficient funds in that fund as well to cover the overages for the project. I would still recommend that we proceed with the project. If it would be deferred, I have no reason to believe that the prices would be any less next year. It probably wouldn't be an option to bid it this year, unless there's substantial changes of some sort. But again, I don't see the prices doing anything but probably sneaking up a little bit with inflation. And perhaps I would defer to Jen on any comments she may have as related to the process for supplementing the budget and so on. Should you choose to proceed with the project as bid.
Well, this is West Center Street, and West Center Street has been on the discussion for many, many years. So, Jen, with that, what are your thoughts on it?
Actually, I'm sorry, Mayor, this is the Northeast 3rd Street from...
oh, this is Northeast 3rd.
Yeah.
This comes from...
Yeah, Northeast...
And then the Washington Center Street is the following years.
Correct, yes. Yeah, the item before in the agenda packet was the West Center Street.
So yeah, Chad and I have had this discussion, crunched the numbers. I concur with what he has presented to you. I guess, to put it simply, what I would like to hear from you is that you simply understand that the project is under budget, or is over budget. You're comfortable with that, knowing that the dollars are there. They're in either the IIP or the second cent money, as Chad had said, or they're in the special maintenance fee fund. But when we have to come back to you at year end looking for a supplement of approximately $71,000, that we remember this conversation, and that the dollars are there, but they will definitely need to be supplemented per budget.
Go ahead.
I visited today with Chad some length about this. Actually trapped him in the ball so he couldn't get away. So.
Is that where you were?
Yeah, it worked too. A couple things you mentioned. There were a couple of things cited in the bid that normally we wouldn't look at, and they were in the bid, and we thought they were appropriate things that we needed to do. And that's probably one of the reasons that the bid was more than anticipated, or part of the reason.
Well, perhaps you're talking about when we need the federal regulations are now when we accomplish overlay projects.
No,
we're required. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I think you just started when you're presenting this here. Didn't you mention there were a couple of things in?
Well, what I would comment on the variation or the exceedance of the engineer's estimate, there's some, for example, an 1.5 inch overlay. That's just, it's not an item that we commonly bid. We bid that as a square yard item instead of a per ton item. And so when making the estimates, quite honestly, I didn't take into account the high enough price for that.
Okay.
And that's why that was one of the most significant items which was differed from my estimate, was that 1.5 inch mat overlay. Now, that could be for a variety of reasons, because it's the road is in not the best shape. There are some irregularities in that, and I would say that that contractor likely put in some extra costs in there to account for his responsibility to level out, if you will, those irregularities. Perhaps some additional tonnage, because we required a minimum of 1.5 inches. And so for him to make sure he has the minimum, because we also have that in our specification that we do cores occasionally, and if we do not want it to be less than 1.5 inches, he perhaps accounted for the fact that there may be places where it may jump up to 1.75 inches, 2 inches for some, to get the ride that we would like, and that we put in the specification as his responsibility to get the ride.
Well, and all three of them did, so.
Yeah. And I just asked that as clarification, because not as criticism of you, Chad, or
Right.
previous estimate. It's just,
Well, it should
it's a
be.
need. We want it to be.
Right.
Yeah. It should have been
Done
close.
right,
I mean,
we're
it
gonna
should
do
be
it.
closer. I always like to be closer than
Yeah.
what this is,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
Well, in Northeast Third, we know that, that gets a tremendous amount of traffic. And that's one that I hear, all the time. When is that one going to be,
Yep.
repaired? So,
It's a little bit of a bird of a different feather in the sack. It's an old highway, with some differentiation on it than we're probably used to in some streets too. The other thing you mentioned today that I feel better about after we talked about it, because I wondered if we just shouldn't, as part of our projects for this summer, take that out and not do that. But with the idea that we have two pooling sources or two funding sources for it, and they don't, they're cumulative. We just keep putting money in those and keep using them as needed responsibly. I feel better about this than if we had to try to dig around in the current budget somewhere and find funding source within the existing budget for the year. We have that funding source available to us for this purpose, so I think we can do this. I think it's the right thing to do.
I guess I would like to toss this out to the other commissioners. How about if we just skip seal coating for 1 year and take the money that we got there and put it towards a project out on Northeast Third and go from there? I think that would probably, because the streets that we're doing this year is like Prairie and Center, and they're newer.
Yeah, we have a series.
They're in better condition than what the other ones is. We could probably take that money and transfer it to a project that would make the taxpayers a lot happier to see done the right way.
well,
Mag,
yes, Chad?
if I may comment, we do have the chip seal process that it's been incorporated for quite some time, and I submit that it's been a sound project, keeping our roads in as good a condition as they are. We haven't had an act probably since I've been here, and I think even for a significant period of time prior to that, a continuous active overlay or street replacement program. And I would submit that I believe the chip seals have been a big part of preserving those roadways. We don't have a lot of heavier loaded traffic on our roadways, and so that is a significant reason, I would say, why they've lasted as long, with just the maintenance activity of the chip seals. And so we do about 1/7 of the town annually. I would have concerns about, more than minor concerns, about just skipping a chip seal for a period of years. And just 7 years is probably about as I extended it to 7 years since I've been here. It used to be at 5. Just for budgetary purposes. That was the time when some of the asphalt prices were really starting to jump, and it was really hitting our budget pretty significantly. But we did that with acknowledgement that that's about as far as we'd want to stretch it, to that 7 years. And so I respectfully would to Mr. Thill, I would recommend that we do not skip chip sealing for the year, and we utilize this out of the funds, the excess funds, if you will, available in the special maintenance fee fund and the IIP/second set.
And
And,
the dollars are there, they're just.
and
not
that's
budgeted
just
for. The
kind of what I
dollars
was
are
hearing. The
already-
dollars are there. We're not having to take, from somewhere else. So
I think,
we'd be able to stay on, on track.
I think we're both trying to find a way within the existing budget for the year that we can make this successful, make this happen. But, and the reason that I think I'm okay with proceeding with it is those two funding sources that we're gonna use are taxpayer-funded money. Okay, they paid into those, both as property owners and then the taxation itself. So I'd be comfortable with saying to a taxpayer, we're using your fund, we're using the funds that you've put away for this now for this project. If we didn't have those resources available, then yeah, I'd have second considerations about myself too. If I'm saying, could we arrange this within the existing budget some other way, but I'm confident both in the need to do this and also the sources available through taxation that this is appropriate to do the right thing to do, Bob.
I guess if we do keep the seal coating project in line, I guess I'd like to see a different type of oil or something where the rock sticks better to it, because you go over the last 2 or 3 years that we've done it, and the rock just ain't sticking to it,
So Gary and I have talked about that a couple of times, but if we could just kind of, if we're going to stick to this, I'd like to just stick to this and then we can talk about that sometime. I understand your concern.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rock.
I just feel we're throwing money
No.
into the wind if we're not gonna do it the right way.
Well, on here, and that even though, they're higher than the engineer's, initial estimate and that, the other two bidders, are both, higher but not significantly. So that says to me that all of them took a look at this project, very much the same, because there's only about $25,000 difference between all three bids. So, and since the funds are available in both the special maintenance fee to make up that difference between the engineer's estimate and the bid, and also in the second set, I would like to see the project continue to move forward. Mr. Corbin?
You feel comfortable with the low bid?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
Did you have any questions, Jeremiah?
No, not really. This is when we're going to do the 1.5-inch overlay on, correct?
Correct.
We're still comfortable with an 1.5-inch overlay?
Yes, actually, Commissioner Thill had mentioned that at the last time when we were advertising, and we looked at that and considered that, and actually had an opportunity to visit with some DOT personnel as well with the type of project that this was at the asphalt conference, by the way, and as you know, this was a former DOT road. Some of them actually, long-time folks that are actually getting ready to retire, were somewhat familiar with it, and I walked through this different process, and they, just visiting informally without a lot of detail exchange and description of the project, they seemed to also concur that this seems like a reasonable way to approach this. The one thing the other item we had on the agenda tonight was for geotechnical analysis. With an overlay, that's probably not necessary because you essentially made an estimate of the structural capacity of the soils and such already with the initial design and the initial installation of the surfacing, and that's there. The roadway, anything that's failing on it, I wouldn't submit would be a failure because of the structural capacity of the roadway. It's the joints is really what's failing, and we're making an effort, and there's provisions in the contract to repair and address those joints. I wouldn't submit that it's a structural failure, and so thereby I would say that I believe my best estimate is that the 1.5-inch overlay would be sufficient.
And we're going 1.5 inches over a concrete base, basically, because the road underneath is already concrete.
And a 3-inch asphalt mat,
Mat on
and then
top
this
of
will be
that.
on top of that, correct, yes.
So, other questions or comments? Okay,
One other thing, that storm sewer going across out there in Northeast 3rd by Dick Margison's goes down into that pasture. Comes out of Windsor's Estates.
Oh,
What
Okay.
kind of
By
conditions
Airport
that
Road.
in? Just probably 300 feet west of the airport road.
we are not planning to get into any of the underground replacement, other than at the west end of the project. Nor have I observed any dipping of the roadway or any surface deficiencies that may be a result of pipe issues. Have I inspected that pipe recently? No. We did inspect it, gosh, I suppose it's been 10 years ago now, back when Windsor Estates was expanding. And you may recall at that time we did some alternate storm sewer installations to relieve some of the hydraulic loading on that. I guess you could describe it that way. So haven't inspected it, but I don't perceive there's any problems with that pipe.
I move that we award bid number 859 to Seal Pros in the amount of $347,112. Is it 61 cents? Do we need, point of interest, do we need any motion on the other two funding sources at this point?
No.
Okay,
No.
there's my first.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, declare as surplus property and appoint appraisers, scrap wire and scrap miscellaneous. And I'll ask Brad if you would want to address that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We just have a dumpster, if you will, that's full of scrap wire. It's got galvanized steel. It's got just a whole host of all kinds of different materials that have been removed. Most of it's smaller. The wire's too short to do anything with. It's just like old weather heads or something that's come off of a house, that type of stuff. So it's just scrap. I mean, truly, if you ever wanted to know what scrap looks like, come look in the dumpster, because that's what it is. It's just, the pieces are fairly long, so if anybody wants to turn it in for salvage to get money out of it, they have to cut it up. It's not worth much galvanized in the lengths that it is, so we just want to get rid of it and get it out of there so we have room for more as we get going on this year's upgrade. And we estimated that the value is about $425 for that.
Questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to declare surplus property and appoint appraisers Jeremiah Corbin, Brad Lawrence, and Tad Comas for scrap wire, scrap miscellaneous.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5, declare as surplus property and appoint appraisers for RCP Arch Pipe. Chad, did you want to address this one?
I can make a few comments, Your
I
Honor.
saw that Brad moved away, so.
There was a gentleman who had contacted Mr. Gagno, street superintendent, and then also myself about some of the arch pipe that is stockpiled near the creek on Highland Avenue. After much discussion with finance officer, Mr. Gagno, and the rest of the staff there, I even talked to Commissioner Thill a little bit about some of the basis of where that material came from, and questions about thoughts on utilizing that in potential future projects. My understanding is that that pipe was acquired in the early 80s, late 70s, and so probably a good deal, if you will, at the time, but it hasn't been put to use significantly since, and then so there's been some discussion about allowing that to be surplused.
Okay.
There's 5 pieces of pipe here that are anticipated being surplus with this declaration. Perhaps there will be a more comprehensive analysis of the stockpiled pipe in the future to dispose of more of it. I'm hard pressed to think that we would reconstruct a road and put in pipe that may have a third of its service life expired already. When we don't get back to these roads very often, and so as much as it may like to, realize those cost savings, we don't think it's prudent at this time. And so that's part of the background of this, and again, this is just 5 pieces at this point in time. There may be some more coming forth as the Public Works Department is contacted or others are contacted about getting rid of this material.
And I guess my thoughts and questions went on this and that, you know, they're having an issue with a bridge in Winfred Township. Is this something that may be used, say, on a township road where there's less traffic and that, other than a heavier traveled road? Or?
They certainly can come and look at it if they would, you know,
You know,
if they want to, you know, we probably would part ways with it to them, I suspect, you know, but that would be their risk, if you will, if they wanted to try to utilize it.
so now the 5 pieces, are they ones that someone has already looked at and has an interest in, or are they just 5 pieces that we want to surplus and move on?
Both.
Okay.
I've looked at them with Gary, and
Okay.
there's been other folks who have looked at them and would like 5. They may be selective.
Okay.
They don't want ones that have broken ends and such like that, but yeah.
Sounds good.
Originally, what that arch pipe was bought for was we was gonna go underneath the railroad tracks on the east side of Highland and route the water down Highland Avenue to the creek instead of letting it go over and behind Proco and down through the county highway shed. And we had to have a certain height of pipe to get underneath there, and I don't know, somewhere it fell through because the railroad and
Probably the railroad.
city engineer Bill Heyer never got it going, and we just let it go.
So a total appraised value, 5 pieces at, we said $90 each, $450.
Okay. Questions or comments or a motion?
I move to declare a surplus property and appoint appraisers. I think we have myself, Gary, and myself, Kelly Johnson, Gary Gagnon, and Chad Comas for 6.36 inch RCP arch pipe. 5 pieces?
5 pieces.
5 pieces. That's the motion.
Hey, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion
I
carries.
just wondered, I didn't put any emotion in that. A second on that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can get a second on that, I'm going to get it.
Seeing no announcements other than remember citywide cleanup will be coming up here in May. No executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, and Jeremiah, have a safe trip, and
Thank you.
hope you took your snow shovel with you. All right, travel safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.